Ashley, looks like we're good to go.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay, good morning. I'm going to call the Public Works Committee to order, and we continue to meet via Zoom. This time not a hybrid, but full on Zoom to be mindful of our kids going up, ensure that we're safe. If you would like to join us via webinar, please log onto www.missoulapublicmeetings.com or https ci.missoula.mt.zoom.us, and you can find us on the calendar list. You can also reach us via voicemail by voice message. 406-552-6012 is the phone number. You can always email City Council by emailing council@ci.missoula.mt.us. We will take public comment after the beginning and after each one of our business items. And Ashley, if you could call the roll, please, that'd be great.
Anderson. Becerra.
Present.
Contos.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Hess. Jones. Merritt.
Present.
Ramos. Cheryl.
Present.
Vasika. Von Lossberg.
Here.
West.
Present.
And Ashley, Hess and Jones have joined for the record.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next, we have minutes to approve from August 4th. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, those would stand approved, and doesn't look like we have anyone from the public to provide public comment on items not on the agenda. So with that, we will move to our first item on the agenda, which is a referral for professional services agreement with Voith Engineering for West Beckwith and the water main replacement. And Andy is here to present on that one and a few other ones. So go ahead, Andy.
Thank you for having me. I'm Andy Schultz, City Engineer for Utilities. I have 3 professional services agreements to run through with you guys today. So the first one, they're all for water main replacement projects that we're hoping to get under design. This first one is for Voith Engineering to design water main replacement in West Beckwith Avenue. Voith Engineering was chosen earlier this year as part of an RFQ process we had to select engineering firms, pre-qualify engineering firms for water main designs. So this project in particular will cover 3 blocks on Beckwith from Rollins to Woodford Street. I can share my screen and show you guys. See if that pops up. You guys able to see that?
Yep.
Okay. So we replaced approximately 950 feet of 6-inch steel water main and cal main water main. These pipe types are priority water main replacement types, just based on their age and their susceptibility to leaking. And so this project was prompted by collaboration with the city streets department. They've got plans to do a mill and overlay along Beckwith Avenue, basically east of Stevens. So this allows us to get in there, replace that water main ahead of time, and then save some costs for the water fund as well, because we won't have to do asphalt patch back on a part of it. And it gets that old water main out from under a brand new street, which is always a good idea. So total cost for this scope of services for WOIF is $75,185. And that will be paid from the Water Enterprise Fund. I think that's all I have, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Go ahead, Julie.
So Andy, when would this work be scheduled to start?
Yeah, we'd hope we're going to target a spring, early summer construction. So Brian has some, I think, we'd have to coordinate around the school schedule there. So we'd probably try to get the work done kind of as quickly as we can from when school's out to, is when we'd start, and then try to get that east side done as quick as we could so that we give Brian maximum flexibility to get in there and pave, or the streets department to get in there and pave.
So that's exactly what I was thinking about, was the St. Joseph's School there, that having construction going on right around the school during school hours is going to be a little disruptive for them. So I appreciate the timing of that to coincide with the end of the school schedule. I would be happy to make the recommended motion.
Thanks, Julie. John, go ahead.
Might be muted
He looks frozen.
or disappeared. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get back to him. Gwen, go ahead.
Sure. Andy, I was just going to say the Rose Park Neighborhood Council is pretty active, and it would be, I'm not sure if you guys have protocol for reaching out to the neighborhood councils or not, but I think it would be helpful to your endeavor here to reach out to them ahead of time and give them a heads up, and they'll also be messaging. So for time frame, et cetera, because this is a main corridor there. So.
Sure. No, I really appreciate that feedback. I don't think that's been a traditional. A lot of times we have a neighborhood meeting ahead of the project, but maybe that's just for, the impacted residents, right, near the project area. So, and we do send out letters, but we will make sure to put Rose Park neighborhood on our notification list, and we'll keep them in the loop.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Go ahead, John. We lost you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe a rabbit ate a cord or something. Andy, I was curious, do you not do in-house engineering on projects like this?
We don't. We had it when I initially got hired about a year and a half ago. It was on our agenda to try to do some in-house engineering on simpler water mains, and we kind of had this as an idea of a project to do. But based on Dennis Bowman's retirement and Logan moving into Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities position, and then Ross moving to engineer manager spot, we just don't have the staff currently to do in-house design. We are in the process of hiring new engineers for the utilities department, though, so I think it is in our future to be able to do some in-house design on some of the simpler stuff, and try to speed along some of these water main replacements.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. We have, it looks like, a couple of attendees in the public. Please let us know if you have comments on this motion, and we will allow you to speak. Okay. With that, please, let's take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Sarah,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt, Cheryl, Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes. Sorry, my computer died there.
that is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. So that will be on our consent agenda. And Andy, go ahead with the next one.
All right. So this is a professional services agreement with Morrison Merrily this time to design and oversee the construction of a main replacement project in East Sussex and East Central Avenue. And again, I can share my screen for a map for a little visual. So this is if you can see the screen, it's kind of the highlighted red portion is what we're looking to replace. So Morrison Merrily was, again, just like Woyth, chosen through the RFQ process that we held earlier this year for water main replacement engineers. This is a larger project. We're looking to replace almost 3,000 feet of 6-inch invasion steel pipe. This pipe, again, is a priority. It's thin walled and it's reached its end of useful life and is susceptible to leaking. So it's definitely on the target list. This one doesn't have a streets project associated with it, but we chose it because in 2019, Missoula Water had a project to replace water main in South Avenue. That was the similar pipe type. And so if we can get this project completed, that kind of removes the priority water mains, the priority 1 water mains out of this area of town. We'll have replaced all of them here. So the total project or contract cost for both design and construction oversight is $129,514, again, paid out of the Water Enterprise Fund.
Thanks, Andy. Anyone has any questions or would like to make the recommended motion? Amber. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor and let's quickly see public. Let us know if you'd like to make any comments on the recommended motion. But seeing none, let's take a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl, Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Great, thank you. That too will be on the consent agenda. And Andy, you're next.
All right, the final one here. This is another professional services agreement with Morrison Merrily. This project is for water main replacement on Mount Avenue between Park and Thames. Let me pull that one up. So this one's highlighted in yellow. This project will replace 800 feet of 6-inch steel pipe that was installed in 1941. It's 80 years old. It's reached its end of its useful life. And so we want to get it out of the street ahead of another project that Public Works and Mobility has in the works. We've got a capital improvement project out there for the California Ivy Franklin Park Greenway surface infrastructure project. And so this only incorporates a small portion of that capital improvement surface project, but this will allow us to get that water main out of any improvements they make there to the park and Mount intersections in that area. And so again, it's collaboration with different departments to make sure that we're staying in front of some of this stuff so we don't have to go back in and fix leaks or replace main after we've done surface work. Total project cost for this is $64,647 out of the Water Enterprise Fund for design and construction oversight.
Great, thanks, Andy. Heather.
Thanks, Marta. Andy, I was wondering, could you repeat how many linear feet this is? It's hard to read on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 800.
800.
Yeah.
So my question to you, Andy, is did Morris and Merrily give you, I don't know if these are the same kind of water system improvements, but there is a difference in price per linear foot between East Central and East Sussex and then this Mount Avenue project. Can you speak to maybe why the Mount Avenue one is more money?
Yeah, it's economies of scale. Generally seen in the construction, but also in the design. So, you know, the amount of time it takes to survey the project area is probably about a day for both of them. You know, so you get more survey in that one day on the larger projects. They can just do more, that's more efficient. And then same with designs and setting up the sheets and that sort of thing. So it's comes down to economy of scale. They're able to, the bigger we can make these water main projects, the less we're going to pay both per linear foot for both the design and the actual construction. And so I think that's where, you know, it's really good when we can partner with streets and make that happen, because we have a lot of cost savings in the construction there, but we might not see the cost savings in the design because they're generally a little bit smaller projects. So as we are able to get a little bit more proactive, and I think we need to look at how we bid these projects to, you know, if they're two separate projects right now, but maybe if we can bid them together, maybe it looks more attractive to contractors too, because I think that's going to be a challenge, is just contractor availability going forward.
That. Okay. Andy, thanks very much. Marta, I'm happy to put the motion on the floor for you.
Great, thank you. Next I see Gwen and then Julie.
Oh, just briefly want to make a comment again, but both on this one and the prior proposal, which is in the University District, I do think, considering that all of these are either on main corridors or the prior one was intersecting Arthur, it is really worth it a month or so ahead of time to let the neighborhood council know what's going on, because again, all of these are pretty active and neighbors do look to them for information a lot of times. So I appreciate that.
Yep, we can definitely make that happen.
Great, thanks.
Julie.
So Andy, I see this one goes right in front of the fire station there. How do we accommodate facilities like that, I mean, we can't cut off the fire station from access there. How do we work around that, just out of curiosity?
That's a good question. We're gonna have to do some phasing to make sure that that we can accommodate that. So I think it's basically as soon as they're done, they probably have to put road plates over the trench, so that that even if they're not fully backfilled, there's still a path across there, and they probably only impact one bay at a time, right? So we'll have provisions in the specs for the project about the access for the fire department through there. So yep, that'll be like priority number one as we get into the design of this, is meeting with the fire department and making sure that we provide the access that they need.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. And Heather, do you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I don't see any hands up from the public, so let's go ahead and take a roll call vote, please.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl, Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Great, thank you. That too will be on our consent agenda. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, and next we have a couple of professional service agreements, and Monty Cip will be presenting. Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah, thank you. Monty Sipe, Construction Project Manager with Public Works and Mobility Surface Transportation. As mentioned, this is a consideration for a professional service agreement with HDR for the Ward and Turner North 5th Street West to the Scott Street Surface Improvements Project. I'm going to share my screen real quick if that's okay. All right, y'all see that? Right. Yeah, seeing the screen? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the Warden Street and Turner Avenue project. Both Warden and Turner are classified as collector streets and are designated truck routes. Through here. This project ranks number 7 out of 90 CIP projects we currently have in place. The project includes constructing sidewalk where none exists, reconstructing broken, deteriorated, and hazardous sidewalk, ADA compliance improvements. We'll be completing some curb bulb outs at certain locations, and intersection enhancements here at the Stoddard, Ward, and 5th intersection. This project will also reconstruct the entire street section of both Warden and Turner within the project limits. They're in deteriorated state and in bad need of repair. And we'll be proposing elimination of parking on one side and installing bike lanes on both sides of this road because they are collectors. Design work will be completed in the winter. And we will bid the project once the design is complete and the city council order process has been done. Construction is anticipated to take place in the summer of 2022. The funding for this $154,259 contract is transportation impact fees. And we do intend to bring a future HDR amendment to Public Works if this is approved, and that would be for the construction staking and some minor amount of construction assistance, and that would be done prior to or with any construction bid award recommendation that we bring forward to council. The city plans to use Public Works and Mobility staff to manage the contractor and inspect the construction work. And so I'd ask that you support the motion as presented, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Monty. And before I move to council questions, I do see a hand up in the public, so I would like to give Mike Bader an opportunity to speak. I don't know if it's for this item or the previous one. Apologies if I missed your hand. You should be good to speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just, a point of clarification, I was under the impression that there was going to be a discussion of a potential sidewalk and curb project on Ivy and Franklin streets, and I didn't see it on the agenda and was afraid that maybe I had already missed it.
That is next, I believe. So hang on tight and then we can call on you again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next I see Heidi.
I would just like to make the recommended motion. I'm super excited that this is happening. This Turner Street is in front of my house, and I've witnessed quite a few close calls between pedestrians, especially school kids, in the mornings on their way to their bus stops. Sidewalks are definitely needed on this street. It's also our truck route through the neighborhood, so we get quite a few 18-wheelers that are headed towards Cip Beverage or some other industrial area destinations, and this is going to be safer for everybody, and I'm really excited about the Warden and North 5th intersection being reworked. That's a real challenging intersection to navigate as a pedestrian, so I'm really looking forward to this being redesigned. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Julie, I think I might have skipped you. Apologies, but go ahead.
No worries. I'm happy to let Heidi make the motion on this one. I'm also really glad to see this go forward. Many moons ago, used to live over there on the corner of Warden and Turner. So Monty, just for clarification, the city is picking up the tab for all of this. There's not a portion of this that's getting paid for by homeowners. Is that correct?
No, so this will be an order project. So, this is our typical curb sidewalk assessment project. So we'll be bringing forth an order to council in the winter or late fall. So assessments will be a component of this under our new rules were adopted several years ago with our latest funding assistance revisions that were done via resolution. So we're finalizing that administrative rule that clarifies what the resolution did several years ago. That talks about the different funding methodologies, the funding assistance for 1 and 2 family, and then multifamily, commercial, industrial, where there's different funding methodologies that apply to the assessment. So there will be assessments, but they will be offset through the funding assistance program. And then the street work is no longer being assessed to individual property owners. That's being picked up by BARSA or other funding sources. So,
okay. Thank you for that clarification.
John, go ahead.
Yes, Monty, maybe you could help me understand this a little bit better. It sounds like you're eliminating parking on one side of the street and installing a bicycle path. I drive quite a bit over there and don't really see a whole lot of bicycles. What's the explanation for that?
So basically our collector streets are, because they're collectors, these are also, the wish is to have bike facilities on these collectors. And so to get bike lanes on this street, we don't have enough width for parking on both sides. So we looked at what portion of Turner and Warden would be the area that wouldn't be parked on, and it makes sense. The current proposal, and we'll be bringing this out to to the neighborhood groups. We'll be doing a mailing and so forth and having further discussion on the conceptual design once we get there. But the idea is to eliminate parking on the east side of Warden, where there currently isn't a lot of use of that right of way for parking. And then the north side, which is the same thing with the cemetery, the multifamily and the trailer park and so forth. There's just really not a whole lot of use on this side, where these are predominantly townhomes or single family, and with the park facility, which is leased from the Catholic diocese, it makes sense to maintain the parking on the south side of Turner and the west side of Warden. And that just allows us to get all the amenities that are spelled out in our Public Works manual for what a collector street should look like.
I see. So if it's a collector street, it just automatically has to eliminate some parking and install a bicycle path. Is that right?
Well, if we had room, the idea through our complete streets policy would to be accommodate all of those amenities. So sidewalk, boulevards, parking, bike lanes, travel lanes, vehicular travel lanes. But you have some limitations due to right of way. And in the case of this project, the curbs are generally in place. So the street section is established. It has existing curb on the entire stretch of this project, both north and south and east and west on Warden. So we're trying to accommodate the facilities within the existing street profile or street section. So what we've determined we can fit in there would be 2 10 to 11 foot drive lanes, the bike lanes, and then 1 parking lane on one side of both Warden and Turner.
So you'll be opening this up for the people that live in that area for their comments, or is this is just going to happen?
No, we'll be going out to the neighborhood. Like I said, once we get under contract and start the design, we'll get some preliminary horizontal layout, some street sections developed and so forth. And then we'll put out a mailing and go to either a neighborhood council meeting or some sort of a Zoom meeting through the neighborhood council or through invite, a mailing, and kind of present everything. And so we're working in conjunction with the transportation planning department, on the necessary facilities and what should be, what we're proposing to put on the ground here.
I see. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Brian, go ahead.
Thanks. A few things, Monty. I appreciate you bringing up the complete streets policy. That's the important reference here relative to that work that's getting done. I want to thank Heidi for her advocacy for quite some time around this area. And I think it's also worth pointing out, and Heidi can correct me if I'm wrong, she voluntarily put sidewalks in front of her own place already. So I think it's just good to be clear about that. And lastly, I live a couple blocks south of this, and John, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. As someone who rides his bike, with my daughter who rides her bike, with my wife who rides her bike, and Heidi's kids are bike rider. There's all kinds of bike activity over in this area. There is the neighborhood gardens that Garden City Harvest runs here. There's the ball field. Ton of bike traffic over there, and started out wanting to thank Heidi for her advocacy around this, and I'll end on that note.
Thank you. Next I have Heidi.
Sorry, I do have a question. I was just wondering, since a big chunk of land there is owned by the diocese, which is the cemetery, I was just wondering if there's been some preliminary outreach to them, just because I know they aren't a taxpayer the way other properties are, which means I think they don't get a subsidy from the city during the project. So if you could just answer that, and then I anecdotally I've seen one kid on a bike hit in front of my house, so I think bike activity would probably increase if it was a little bit safer to ride here.
Yeah, so we're pretty early in the process here. We're just trying to get the design started. So there definitely would be coordination with all the property owners. The diocese, the cemetery here, the diocese also owns this whole block where the Northside Park, the ball fields and the community gardens currently is. The city's entered into a lease agreement with them. So we'll be coordinating with the diocese and parks. They're in the early stages or beginning stages of a master planning process on this whole block, was designated as the Northside Park. So we're doing the street related improvements, but they also got a planning process starting here in the near future to contemplate how this will be redeveloped. And so we'll be coordinating with the diocese because they have this facility here, as well as Parks and Rec to make sure that they understand what's going on. And through the order process, so we'll get out mailings to discuss a 30% design concept. But once we get through that process and move along towards final design, the next step will be, our order process via resolution through council. And so there's 5 letters that go out to each individual property owner through that process throughout the project. The first one being prior to it being scheduled for committee and council for discussion on the order for the construction.
Great, thank you. Julie.
At the risk of appearing to pile on, I'm going to reiterate the complete streets concept. So, and John maybe just doesn't have the familiarity with it, is that the city does have a complete streets policy, so that when there is a project that's being done, that complete streets policy says that we should build our infrastructure to accommodate all modes of transportation. We have to remember that there are many, many hundreds and thousands of people in our community that use multiple modes of transportation. They may drive sometimes, they may ride their bikes sometimes, and quite frankly, we're all pedestrians at times. So that complete streets policy is important, and we need to pay attention to that. So this is an important area to provide that safe transportation for bikes and pedestrians, people in wheelchairs, people with other mobility issues. This is an area of town that there are a lot of items that attract people who bike and ride, with the community gardens, the baseball field, the turtle park across the street. There are a lot of young people in this area, and making a safe place for all of our people who need to get around our community is really important.
Well stated, Ms. Merritt. Thank you for that. And I also want to add that the city has been committed to making a concerted effort to put a lens of equity on how we make investments in our community and always design for the lowest denominator, which is pedestrians and bicycles. And I think that this is no different. And it also serves as a connector through our community for many people. I too used to use this area to go east-west quite a bit, and I know that it gets quite a bit of traffic, particularly young kids, children. So happy to support this. We have a motion on the floor, and I think Mr. Bader is here for the next item, but please let us know if you would like to speak on this item also. Okay. So let's do a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. Thank you, Monty. That will be on our consent agenda, and you have the next one.
I believe Brant's going to be presenting our next
Okay.
project for you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Brant Dolan, Construction Project Coordinator with Surface Transportation Engineering. So let me share my screen for this project. All right, so this is consideration for a professional services agreement with Imeg for the Ivy Franklin Park project. Ivy, Franklin, and Park are all local streets that are neighborhood greenway routes, and this project ranks 8 out of the 90. This project will be constructed in 2 phases. This is actually the second phase. This is the first phase. The first phase is from Ivy Street and 4th all the way along Franklin until it intersects Plymouth Street. The second phase is from the intersection of Park Street and Mount to Patty Creek Drive. So this project will include along the whole project constructing curb and sidewalk where none exist, reconstructing broken, deteriorated, and hazardous sidewalk for the whole project. And then phase 1 will include holdouts on all 4 corners of Ivy Street and 4th. Some stop signs were recently installed along Franklin. Those are already in there. And then we're gonna make 3 of the temporary traffic circles that were installed with the stop signs. So 3 temporary traffic circles are along Franklin and Longstaff, Rollins, and Woodford, and those are being replaced with permanent ones. Phase 2 will include some rework of Plymouth and Mount intersection, which includes a shared use path on the east leg of the Mount crossing there, and also maybe some rapid flashing beacons on the east side crosswalk. Also, we're going to add parking preventers on the remaining 3 legs of the intersection at Benton and Park by the school there. So the schedule, the phase 1 will be completed, or the design work is we're hoping to be completed this winter. We will bid and construct the project once designed and the city council order process is complete. Phase 1 is anticipated to take place in the summer of 2022, and construction for phase 2 is anticipated to take place in 2023. The funding for this $130,150 contract is BARSA and or local option fuel tax funds, along with the assessments for the curb or the sidewalk. This contract is for 30% conceptual design on phase 1 and 2 and 100% design on phase 1. This contract does not include staking on phase 1 and 2 or final design. We'll come back for those. We will be bringing future amendments for those. The city plans to use public works mobility staff to manage the contractors and inspect the work. So I ask that you approve the recommended motion, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Brent. Did you say that this has a portion of it from gas tax money?
I believe so, possibly.
Okay. Ms. Jones, go ahead.
Thank you. I couldn't quite hear you. Where did you say, what intersection of flashing beacons being proposed at?
Sorry. Yeah, that was Plymouth Street and Mount Avenue.
Okay. Oh, great. Lovely. I'm excited about that. And then my second question is for the roundabout at Woodford and East Franklin, my understanding it was contemplated 10 or 15 years ago, and because the fire trucks use that as a route from the fire station on Mount, it could not be put in, but has something changed? Why? I know there's a temporary one there now, which the fire trucks could just go right over it if they need to. But how is that going to work? What's changed, if you know?
We did reach out to fire. I think they didn't, it wasn't their ideal scenario, but they can make it work.
Follow up, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if they're more used to working with roundabouts now than 15 years ago when the traffic circles, when they started. So it's just, anyway, I think it's great. That is a very busy intersection, and I'm excited to see all of this work done. So thanks. And I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Heather, go ahead.
Thanks. Brant, in the prior agenda item, Monty spoke to the fact that that particular project on Warner and Turner is ranked number 7 out of the 97 CIP projects. Could you let us know where this particular project ranks in that CIP list, which I know is quite long?
So this one is number 8, I believe.
Okay. And we were ranking these based on number 1, safety, and then equity across all our neighborhoods, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I am going to go to our public. Mr. Mike Bader, please go ahead.
All right, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me speak. I have about 3 major concerns as a homeowner who has property bordering on Franklin Street. And that's that all this is going about and none of us have been notified, not a bit. And I called and spoke with Brant last week and got a bit, because everybody's got wondering what's going on. All these trucks are around spray painting, marking utilities. And so I think you're pretty far ahead of the public on this. And my other concern, having spoken with Brant, is that there's the idea that the city may invoke code for a boulevard on places where there's new sidewalks. And I'm very adamantly opposed to that because that's not the existing pattern in our neighborhood on these streets. I took a bunch of pictures today and we had a new development on Ivy Street where they just put in new curbs and sidewalks less than 4 weeks ago, right abutting the street. And so I don't think it would be fair to, every 4th or 5th house go in and have a boulevard strip and then the rest of it in the whole neighborhood be along the existing street there. So I think that I'm all for curbs and sidewalks and I'm in great support for the permanent calming circles, but I want all this applied uniformly and fairly. And I think that, taking code kind of willy-nilly when you haven't been taking it for all these years really wouldn't be fair. So I know that several of my neighbors are also concerned and not very keen on the idea that this got put on an agenda today without any of us being notified. So I think unless you have any questions, I could stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Bader. I'm going to go ahead and ask either Brant or Monty, I see your hand up too, to speak to this, please.
Yeah. So thank you. So, these projects, as we mentioned, ranked in the top 10 under like 90 plus CIP projects. And there's been a pretty significant amount of public process developing the CIP project list and ranking these projects community wide. So, you know, we have to start somewhere, and the first thing we do is get some engineer on design to try to get some conceptual design laid out and then go out to the neighborhood with these projects. So the Slant Streets area has very large right of way, 80 and 100-foot right of ways. I think the majority of Franklin is 80 feet wide. The IV frontage that Mike mentioned is a short stretch of road between 5th and 6th Street, which are one ways. And the Bitterroot Branch Trail kind of impacts and kind of cuts off Ivy Street. So Ivy does not have that 80-foot right of way. So we're limited what we can do there on that portion of the private development that he spoke about with the existing layout there. So that's why that was granted an exception for that development to go curbside. So we do have regulations in place, and we always, as mentioned before in the previous project, our complete streets policy. We're always trying to get boulevard sidewalks in our right of ways where topography and other conflicts don't exist. And on Franklin, there's really not a lot of that impact. So, you know, we try to get boulevards developed so we can provide street trees. It's an area for snow storage. Versus a curbside sidewalk. It also creates a more friendly streetscape once those trees get in and develop. It's also a place for mailbox locations where the rural routes are, which the U.S. Postal Service is trying to go to in a lot of areas of town. So that's kind of some of the basis. We do start with boulevards in all locations unless there's some other restriction that would limit us to go in curbside.
Thank you, Monty. Could you speak to ways for the neighbors to be more engaged or notified? What's the next step in terms of notification or participation?
Yeah, so this is what we just like the last one presented, the Ward Turner. So once we get some concept drawings in place with with Imeg on this project, we will be doing the same thing. We'll be putting a mailing out and we'll be scheduling a neighborhood meeting or a Zoom meeting to discuss the concepts that we're putting forward. So there'll be public participation at that point. And then once again, this will be a curb sidewalk order. So for a sidewalk order process. So components of this will be an assessment. So we'll have additional mailings and there'll be additional discussion in committee and council prior to the resolution to order later this fall.
Okay. I see one more hand up from the public. So I'm gonna unmute Robin Moki.
Yeah, very good. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me speak. I just heard about this morning too, and I echo Mike's concerns and questions/comments. One thing I do want to say as far as the uniformity that was just mentioned, I live on the corner of Franklin and Cleveland Street, and there is a house across the street from me that is a fairly new construction. It's a small house and the owner added an Airbnb and had to put in curbing, and that is not boulevarded, and that was done fairly recently. So I just also want to bring up the question and the concern about boulevarding and the uniformity of the area and the fairness to the homeowners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council members? And do we have a motion? Heather.
You do now. I put the motion on the floor.
All right. Okay. So with that, we have a motion on the floor. We've had public comment. we will continue to work on ways that we can make this information available to the neighbors and engage in more neighborhood collaboration. But we now need to get this first step out of the way and get this project going. So that's why we have a motion on the floor. Could we take a roll call vote, please, Ashley?
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. That too will be on our consent agenda. And thank you, Brant and Monty.
Thank you.
And now we have Bear Trucks Bridge, Phase 2 deck port, night closures. Katie.
Thanks. I'm Katie Emery. I'm the Business Operations Manager for Public Works and Mobility. I am introducing this item and introducing Matt Straub from NDT for this item. This is informational only. He's already gone through the process to have all of this approved, but we thought it's important that you all know what's going on. So I'll take it over, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Straub with the Montana Department of Transportation, and I'm the engineering project manager for the Bear Tracks Bridge project. We're looking at doing a full closure of the Higgins Bridge at night to facilitate our deck pours for the spans over the river only. These are spans 3 through 5. They're the big steel superstructure that spans the river. The closures would be approximately from about 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. We will have a traffic control plan submitted and approved through the city engineer prior to closure. And we'll utilize Big Sky Public Relations, our public relations firms, to notify the adjacent landowners and properties to mitigate the impact. This, with our current load restrictions on the bridge, this is a tentative plan. We can't do it if our load restrictions are not lifted. But we have other means to place this concrete. They're less desirable than shutting down the bridge for an evening. And we just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the situation and why we're doing it. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from council members? Let's see, Julie and then Amber.
You may or may not have an answer to this, but since we've got you, do we have any additional information about the fixes that would allow those weight restrictions to be lifted?
At this time, we do not have any additional information. We've done our field investigation and identified some of our problems where we're in the process of reviewing and approving the load rating. It is going to change. We don't know how long that review and approval is going to take.
Okay, thank you.
Amber, go ahead.
Thanks, and thanks for this update, Matt. I'm curious about restricting or monitoring any traffic actually on the water while you're doing this. How is that working?
We will not be restricting any traffic on the water. Our safe span, our underdecking system, protects all the water users underneath. So even if we're dropping large chunks of concrete, it catches everything. So there will be no impact to the users on the water.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I have seen that as I floated under the bridge not that long ago, and it's a pretty sturdy mesh system that's underneath it. Any other questions from council members? Heather, go ahead.
Matt, I know this is slightly concerning the Bear Tracks Bridge, but unrelated to the topic you brought to us today. But somehow I may have missed it, but what's the update on the pedestrian deck itself in terms of what was happening in terms of the high heat levels?
The high heat levels on the pedestrian deck are a result of their fiber reinforced polymer panels, and they're lightweight concrete substitute panels that we used over the river portion. There's essentially no mass in them, so all the reflective sun, all the heat from the sun is basically reflected directly back into the panel. We painted about a 3-foot strip on the edge of the panel white. It was actually a concrete stain we used. That reduced the temperatures on the panels down to about the same temperature as the asphalt in the crosswalks. So it mitigated that temperature down 20 to 25 degrees.
Great.
Again, this is a problem that we have in direct sunlight. Cloudy days, it doesn't come through. And the panel adjacent to our painted section is still very hot, but there is an alternative path there. Going forward, we're entertaining some solutions. We're looking at some other products as far as stains and what we can do with that. But we haven't settled on a finalized solution. The panel makers are actually studying 3 different products as far as stains and different materials that we might be able to use to at least color the pedestrian portion of that bridge. But that plan has not been finalized.
Okay, appreciate the update, and thanks for coming in with the palm tree behind you, just so that we remember we're in Montana.
I'm in Aruba.
There you go. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, and thanks, Katie, for bringing this to committee. Appreciate it. And last but not least, and for a few minutes, Aaron Wilson, you have an update.
Yeah, and we have about 4 minutes to go through?
Maybe we can steal a couple minutes. Yeah.
I can go very quickly through the slides that I have and try to leave a little bit of time for discussion. So thanks everyone for having me. Aaron Wilson, the city's infrastructure and mobility planning manager. And I wanted to come today and just give a quick update on our Higgins corridor planning project that we discussed. I guess it was a couple months ago. I was here getting approval for the contract, and we were getting our consultants on board. And so now this project is underway, and we've started work on some of the initial phases of the project. So it felt like a good point to do a quick update. So I think in the interest of time, I'm going to skip through some of the initial slides just about the reason we're doing this project, but just as a quick reminder, this project really came out of the downtown master plan and the work that was done looking at Higgins corridor and some of the issues that were there, and proposed some potential different alternatives that could be implemented on the street, but didn't really land on any specifics of this is what we should move forward. And so with the Bear Tracks Bridge going into construction and seeing all of those improvements come online, the potential growth that's happening along the hip strip and in downtown, it feels like a really opportune time to get this project going. And we have a team that's led by Kittleson and Associates that's been working hard already and doing a great job getting us to where we're at today. So just a quick overview of the process that we're going to go through on this project. The first and sort of primary task throughout this effort is to really focus on public and stakeholder engagement with both adjacent property owners, businesses, as well as residents and commuters who are using the corridor. So having as good public involvement as possible in this project to make sure that we're balancing all the various needs appropriately, and really considering all of the different competing interests that might be there for Higgins Street. Obviously, the other stakeholder that we're going to engage very closely with is the Montana Department of Transportation, since this is their facility, and there is a state highway that runs through a portion of this section. So public involvement, stakeholder engagement, really important to this project through all the phases. And we have started that already, reaching out with some initial meetings that I'll talk a little bit about. We also have the project foundation, which is just doing all the analysis and background details on traffic volumes, crash history, just sort of that technical analysis that will help inform what we do moving forward. And then that will lead us into the next step, which is developing some alternatives, different ways that we can use the available space that we have for all those different potential interests and modes and uses of Higgins, and then developing a way to evaluate those alternatives to make sure that we're doing a design that best meets our community's goals. And then finally, that'll lead into a final concept that will be hoping to get adopted and approved and build support and momentum for early next year in March, February or March, which really sets us up to coincide with federal funding that we're seeing happening at through Congress right now. The state that Front Main 2A conversion is moving forward, so we can tie into that project better. The Brook Street corridor that may impact transit along this section of Higgins. So all of those things are sort of coming together, and the timing is really, I think, going to work out well for us. At least that's what we hope. So we've established a few objectives for this project. The primary one, as I mentioned, is really just making sure we're engaging everyone on this corridor, particularly the business owners and residents and property owners, to make sure we understand what their needs are. And then we're developing a concept that really considers one, a multimodal facility. So we're accommodating all of the different modes in the way that the new Bear Tracks Bridge does. Improvements we made several years ago to North Higgins, where we have the protected cycle tracks, or try to make sure we create a consistent corridor throughout Higgins from the railroad through to Brooks. And then the primary objective there is to improve safety. So we're making sure we're eliminating those safety risks, things like the bicycle crashes that we saw. There was one really prominent one in the last year or so, and making sure we address that. And then really increasing the opportunities for people to take various modes, and including transit and biking and walking. And then that relates to our outcomes, where we create a street that is safer for all modes of travel getting into downtown, that it's inviting, it has the right streetscape, it's making Higgins the destination that I think the downtown master plan envisions and that our community wants it to be, and that we're starting to see with people lingering on the bridge. That somebody likened that to sort of a boardwalk on the where people are there, they're rollerblading or standing on the bridge, congregating there, traveling through. It's really a destination, and how do we foster that? And then how do we support the economic growth and activity along the corridor? So to get to the meat of what I think everyone will be most interested right now is our public outreach to date. We've set up a website on Engage Missoula, and we'll continue to put information there and try to engage people virtually in that space. We have an interactive map where people can drop comments. We have a survey up there that people can fill out, both for residents and for business owners. And then we have idea and question boards. So if people want to submit photos or ideas from other communities or things that they really like, they can use this idea board to start populating sort of the more creative side of the input that we can then use in our designs. And then we've done a bunch of direct outreach in stakeholder meetings. We did a number of events. I think between those 3 events at Caris Park that we attended, we talked to over 200 people. It was, we were consistently talking. I don't think we had any downtime where there was no one engaged. People were really interested, were coming up to us, often talking to groups of people. So that I think was really successful, just getting some initial thoughts on what to do with Higgins. And then we did canvassing of businesses that we hadn't talked to yet. So going door to door, making sure that they were all aware of this project. And if they had concerns or thoughts, that we were starting to hear that. So when we were talking to those questions to all of those folks, we learned a lot of things in this project process. Some of it we knew, some of it was an interesting context, particularly around parking, that is going to be a key issue here in terms of how we address parking, the types of parking challenges south of the river versus north of the river, things like turnover of parking. When Hellgate High School is in session, students are coming and parking in some of these areas and taking up those spaces that then don't turn over at all during the day, and creates additional pressure for people who might be going there for services or to access businesses or employees. We've heard a lot about traffic flow, both that there are some concerns and interest there, but also the left turning movements and how that restricts access to and along the hip strip, and then similar priorities for improvements in terms of creating safe facilities. So that's a really quick overview. I could give a little bit more detail there if we do have some time to steal. I know I'm going a little bit over, so apologies there. But that's sort of where we're at. We've done the initial outreach. We're working on our technical analysis that should be ready in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be developing some alternatives. So with that rapid walkthrough, if we have some time.
You can catch your breath now, Aaron.
Right.
Sorry, we ran out of time. Ms. Jones, I was looking at the wrong week for our schedule. So if we have lunch after this, if everyone is okay sharing just a few more minutes in case anyone has questions, that would be great. Gwen, go ahead.
Great, I'll be super brief. And I don't really have a question, just more of a comment. Thank you, Aaron, for doing this, first of all, and for doing this project. And I just wanted to create a little more context that I have been talking about this for the entire 6 years I've been on council. I've talked to all of the adjacent neighborhood councils several times regarding this. I've talked to constituents. It needs to be done. And we've had some pretty serious accidents and a horrible accident last summer where a girl was dragged underneath a car on her bike on Higgins. So anyway, I do think there's been a lot of notice, and if anyone wants to talk to me about it as their counselor, I'm happy to do that, but it's time to bring the hip strip into the 21st century, I do believe, and I'm glad that we're going forward on it.
Yeah, I agree. Much needed work, and this is the right time to do it for a number of reasons. So glad that we're getting this going. Any other comments or questions from council members? Okay, I don't see anyone in our public attendee list. Again, thank you so much, Aaron. Sorry for the rushed presentation, but I think we all got a pretty good idea of what is happening. And if there are any other questions later, please send them to, you can send them to me or Aaron directly. Okay, with that, we don't have anything else on our agenda. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon. We'll be